Hello, ladies, MBs and gentlemen. If you've ever engaged in online arguments relating to subjects such as religion and politics, you're no doubt familiar with the concept of logical fallacies, or at least you'll likely have heard the term. Logical fallacies are essentially bad arguments, bad specifically due to them having invalid form. One such bad argument is the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is essentially the argument that if a pursuit of some sort has already consumed a large amount of our time, resources, reputation, or other such investment, it cannot be abandoned because then all that investment will have been for nothing. In more lay terms, we've come this far, we can't give up now. The sunk cost fallacy is sometimes also known as the Concorde fallacy, because apparently this was the exact justification for continually sinking money into the Sud Aviation and British Aircraft Corporation project that was Concorde, that they'd come too far to give up. I don't know enough about Concorde to know if this is a fair assessment of the project or not, but that is how the sunk cost fallacy has obtained this other name. The alternative line of argument to "we've come this far, we can't give up now" would of course be "we've wasted enough time, resources, etc. on this, let's not waste any more." When it comes to a pursuit such as developing a new aircraft, the sort of cost you would sink into it would most obviously be time, money and resources. But something else we might sink into such a pursuit might be our personal reputation. If we've gone on record as declaring our pursuit to be a good idea, we've invested our personal reputation in it. If we have to admit that we were wrong, we won't merely be embarrassed, but we may never be taken seriously by the sort of people we want to be taken seriously by ever again. It's this investment of personal reputation that I think is most relevant when it comes to our commitment to things such as religious and/or political beliefs. If you've ever been baffled as to how an otherwise intelligent person can show such passionate commitment to what are very dubious or even outright absurd beliefs, the sunk cost fallacy may well explain why. If one makes a commitment to fundamentalist Christianity in childhood, for example, then this will likely be a commitment made before, not after one has read the King James Bible from front to back, and before any research is done into whether or not the King James Bible is an accurate translation of the Bible, or if there is any basis for the historical accuracy of any translation of the Bible. Such research may never even happen at all, given as such research would in and of itself be an admission of doubt in what one has already committed themselves to. As such, if you're a fundamentalist Christian since childhood and you're made aware of some horrific passage in the King James Bible, such as the condoning of slavery, the command to stone LGBTQ people to death, the command that Christians must hate their families, the many instances of infanticide, genocide, incest, rape, etc., etc., rather than admitting that you made the mistake of committing yourself to something without doing proper research beforehand, you might succumb to the sunk cost fallacy and start arguing that these passages are being misunderstood or being taken out of context. In such cases, we're not so much using the sunk cost fallacy as an argument against our critics, as we're using it as an internal argument with ourselves. Part of us wants to remain committed to what we've committed ourselves to, while part of us can see the evidence laid bare that our commitment was a mistake. This creates a discomfort called cognitive dissonance, when two beliefs a person has come into conflict with one another. The sunk cost fallacy isn't just employed in defence of our religious and political commitments, but also in our commitments to our friends and family. If someone you know has been caught committing a serious wrongdoing, do you find yourself defending this person by insisting that you've known them for years? Do you perhaps take the whole thing as a personal attack on you and your ability to be discerning in the company you keep? Pretty much everyone who ever committed a serious wrongdoing knew people. Having been known by someone for years obviously does not preclude a person from committing serious wrongdoing. So if we've known someone for years and it turns out they're the sort of person we shouldn't have known for years, we perhaps need to reflect on how scrutinous we're being in the company we're keeping, for our own sake if nothing else. Admitting that we have made poor choices in the company we keep or the political or religious beliefs we commit ourselves to is never easy. Other people may gloat that they were never deceived by such deceptions and are therefore your intellectual superiors. Hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully other people will recognise that we're all capable of being fooled by deceptions, and that we all have different blind spots, and therefore just because they weren't fooled in the way you were, doesn't mean that they never have been or ever will be fooled in some other way. But if they do gloat, then they gloat. We can't control what other people do, only what we do. and what we do is hopefully not sink any more of our time, resources, or personal reputation into things that aren't worthy of our time, resources, or personal reputation. If it helps, Albert Einstein, widely considered to be a scientific genius, perhaps the most well-known scientific genius, once declared his belief in a static universe to be his greatest blunder, after Edwin Hubble found evidence that the universe is in fact expanding. He didn't admit this straight away, though to be fair, it's not unreasonable to want to be given time to consider new evidence. This isn't necessarily the sunk cost fallacy in play. What is important is his eventual acceptance of the evidence and the fact he is still considered a genius. If admitting error doesn't stop Einstein being viewed as a genius, then perhaps us ordinary people shouldn't worry about admitting error either. Admitting error is actually a sign of intelligence, not a sign of incompetence. Something else that might help is understanding that if you've ever been committed to a religious or political movement that you've later learned to be absurd and or toxic, your understanding of that movement will be far deeper than that of those outside the movement. You have first-hand knowledge of what it's like to be part of the movement and will also have a first-hand understanding of the sort of mindset a person in that movement might have. This experience can be invaluable to anyone looking to challenge absurd and or toxic movements. Knowing this allows you to perhaps recover some of the sunk cost. Before we finish, I'd like to close by pointing out that conversations like this are tedious and pointless. If we've used the sunk cost fallacy to justify to ourselves why we're ignoring evidence and trusting instead our prejudices, we need to call ourselves out on that, not other people. Thanks for watching.